Okay, let's move on. The market is status quo, really. JK Cement, Metropolis, LTTS, Lal Path Labs persisted. It's really IT Pharma once again, which is really holding the ship for the last two trading sessions at least. Um, Talking about pharma, let's delve a little bit deeper into the sector on whether or not the pricing pressure is now behind for pharma companies, what really is the outlook, and what with now this Omicron variant spread as well. What would it really spell for pharma companies and healthcare companies at large? Let's discuss all of this. We have with us Vaidheesh, former MD at GlaxoSmithKline, as well as the President OPPI, and Nithya Balasubramanian, Director India Healthcare at Sanford Bernstein, joining in on the show right now. Mr. Vaidheesh, Nithya, great to have you guys in the show with us. Thank you so much for taking the time out. Before we look forward, Nithya, I just want to rewind a little bit back as well and wanted to understand that one niggling worry that we had just about begun seeing about a quarter back or so when it came to US pricing pressure. And we did see many companies actually entail the same in their second quarter filings. Is that behind us, or do you think that continues to loom large as a threat?
I think you're likely to see at least another quarter of year-on-year pricing deflation, because remember how this actually started, right? I think the major reason why we saw a significantly higher deflation was actually because of the stocking up that happened through 2020 when people were trying to make the supply chain more resilient. And that, I think, is the major cause of the deflation. Therefore, I think it's another quarter at least of impact left for us to see. However, I do believe that FY23 should look largely normal again on a YOY deflation basis. This year, we have seen, I think, pricing deflations hovered around the high single-digit number, 8 to 9%. I do hope that it'll come down to the normalized 4 to 5% levels starting FY23.
Mr. Vaidheesh, if I could get you into the discussion. Now, of course, you're seeing, along with Delta variant, vast spread of Omicron as well, not just in India, but you're seeing that more in geographies, especially in the European continent as well as UK. What does it spell for healthcare services industry? Because in the second quarter, we just about saw the non-COVID segment actually outperform for them, and the market as well gave them a big re-rating. But does that get challenged now?
Well, I do think so. With Omicron spread happening in India, particularly in places like Mumbai and Delhi, I'm not sure it's Omicron, but at least the wave has started. So we are going to see again huge amount of impact on other drugs, but primarily it's going to be in the area related to immunity, related to therapeutic drugs and vaccines. A lot of efforts are going to go in that direction. So you may get some little bit of blip for the next quarter on the other categories.
Right. Nithya, how should you approach the pharma pack going into 2022? Pharma is now divided into a lot of spaces. So healthcare is doing well. Diagnostic has a different story by itself. Within pharma itself, you have generics, you have injectable, complex players. How would you essentially look at pure play India, pure play US? How would you, suggest to play the pharma for 2022?
See, I think let's keep Omicron aside, right? I think we have seen that some companies which do have a fairly wide COVID portfolio do tend to benefit, but then it's usually short-lived. And again, the hope is that even if there is an Omicron wave at some point of time, it will hopefully subside. So I think in terms of thinking about the sector, I would say it's back to basics. I wouldn't recommend a pure COVID play at all. So back to basics in the sense that you look at companies that have a very strong chronic portfolio in India, companies that have a comprehensive portfolio in India who have been able to beat the market. Sun Pharma, for example, has a pretty strong commercial muscle in India. We've always believed that they will continue to do well in India. Cipla, for example, respiratory, and now that they have a larger cardio-diabetic portfolio as well, I do believe they should do well. And again, and if you look at the US, again, we would recommend companies that do have a strong pipeline of complex generics. We have always believed that the US generic growth for Indian companies is unlikely to be secular. So we don't see a secular lift for all the companies. It is likely to be companies like Cipla, for example, which has a differentiated complex inhaler portfolio, or even a Lupin, right? So they also have similar pipeline and inhalers and some injectables and biosimilars as well. Dr. Reddy's, to some extent, they have a fairly strong pipeline in FY23. So we would recommend that look at companies that have a very strong domestic portfolio, which remains a cash cow and will likely remain a cash cow in the future, and companies that have a differentiated complex generic pipeline, because like I said, it's unlikely to be secular, the US generic growth.
Right. Vaidheesh, if we just look at the moving up the value chain, last 5-6 years have been all about companies moving either into injectable, which is high growth area, or complex generics, or people moving ahead on biosimilars. You think that investment phase going into complex biosimilars is now behind, and now the execution part of it will be in focus over the next couple of years?
Yeah, correct, Pankaj. What you said is correct, but still, I don't think we are completely on top of that particular profile of biologics or complex generics. It's still work in process for many Indian companies. Some companies have done a great job of being there, but I don't think the investment in that area is still not at over. I do believe, of course, the execution is obviously getting your markets in play, make sure that you're able to get a entry into some of the big manufacturers, formulation. I do believe still we have a long way to go to say that it's behind us. Some more work to do in that area.
Right. Nithya, your top picks were really, names like Sun Pharma, which have which had not got re-rated, and the new age listings like, Gland, and, how do you see there? Where do you see listings happening in the next year? You think PharmEasy will be an interesting one? E-pharmacy overall will be an interesting phase in the listed market in 2022?
I think so, Pankaj. I think it's a very interesting business model. What they're trying to build is one, an integrated ecosystem, which means that they're trying to make sure that they have multiple consumer touch points through the entire patient journey. So they have teleconsultation, they have diagnostics. Now with ThyroCare, it's so much stronger. And of course, they have the e-pharmacy bit as well. All of it is also supported by a fairly strong backend, right? So they have their own inventory and distribution model as well. So I think put it all together in a complex category like pharmaceuticals, right? We know that we've got about 90,000 SKUs across the country. Every region has its own different set of 50,000 SKUs, which are more prevalent. So given how complex the category is, having a strong backend also makes a lot of difference. I do think it's a very interesting business model. However, I think compared to most other consumer sectors, the one thing which is not yet clear when it comes to health tech is what the market structure will look like. We do see a lot of investment now going into the space. We've got Reliance investing, Amazon's been toying around with what they want to do, Flipkart's invested. So I think the market structure is still evolving, but given that there is such a long runway for growth remaining, I think it's great news that so many people are investing. I do see this as expanding the customer base itself. And API Holdings for sure has a very interesting business model, which I think should be resilient.
So, looking into the new year, Nithya, just wanted to understand where is it that you're recommending buying afresh within pharma, or for that matter, adding on to existing positions?
So our top picks amongst Indian companies, right, Indian generic companies right now are Sun Pharma, because we do think that the specialty portfolio will continue to grow. Winlevi looks promising. This is the new brand that they've launched in the US. Therefore, we think as the specialty portfolio grows, you will increasingly see operating leverage come through and improvement in margins as well. And of course, supported by the continuing strong growth in India. We like Cipla as well. Cipla, I think we are looking forward to some very material launches in the US in FY23. Lanreotide, which is a generic of cimetidine depot, is a very interesting product. While the ramp up might take a little bit of time because it's a complex specialty product, we do think that it's a very interesting opportunity for Cipla. And beyond that, we also see them as being able to launch generic Advair and generic Abraxane pending an FDA approval, all of which are important material products for them in the US. And the third one we like is Gland. We actually see, despite the wave of COVID infections in the US, we do see the injectable market, the prescriptions for injectables actually on a continuous growth trajectory in the US. And Gland being fully exposed to this market should benefit from injectables market recovery. And they also have some very interesting products in the market. And Enoxaparin, we believe, will become a very important contributor for Gland in the remaining quarters as well as FY23. And we look forward to what's going to happen with Sputnik. That's been a little bit of an overhang for Gland. But I think even setting that aside, we believe there is strong growth that's possible in the base business. So Sun, Cipla, and Gland remain our top picks.
Okay, great to have you in the show, Nithya, and here's wishing you a very happy and healthy new year ahead. Vaidheesh, wish you a very happy 2022 as well.
Thank you.